What is a prototype suit? A good prototype suit should act as a good way to transition to the default classic suit. First, we'll start off with Iron Man. Yeah, we're going to talk about him first. I think that this prototype is the most important, as it is so heavily tied to his backstory. The Model 1 is a full gunmetal gray suit of armor, and otherwise pretty simple in design. The MCU's Mark 1 is a pretty good adaptation of the Model 1, and improves upon it in many ways. The suit looks like trash, and that's why I love it. It's pretty much just a bunch of scrap metal put together to make a form-fitting suit. We didn't get a more refined version of the suit with the Mark II. It was more sleek and human-like in design. It was more useful for its improved flight capabilities compared to the first one. I wish we got to see a fully gold version of the suit like in the comics. You see it for a bit in the movie, and there's even a suit in Iron Man 3 referencing this, but I really would have liked to see a scene with it. Next up is Captain America. In his prototypes. Unlike Iron Man, he actually debuted in his classic suit, with adjustments that would later come in the future. Some versions of Captain America do show us a hypothetical prototype when they flash back to World War II, such as the Ultimate World War II suit. A lot of people I've talked to don't seem to like this suit too much, but I do. It looks like a regular World War II uniform with the Captain America theme added to it. Captain America in World War II should always have a suit that feels more of its time, so that we can compare it to his more modern suit. The propaganda suit from the MCU is practically a one-to-one of the debut suit, and is a perfect reason as to why not everything needs to be comic accurate. I want to talk about what I like, one of them being the coloring of the suit. The blue is slightly darker than the one in the comics, but that's whatever. Let me just say I love this suit, in ways I can't explain. As much as I love it, I would not be able to take Captain America seriously if he went in the battle with this, in the live action movie, of course. And that's a good thing, since Steve in the story was never meant to go in the battle in this. He was never meant to be a soldier, and this suit taught him that lesson all over again. But unlike last time, he could really do something about that. This is what leads us into the original field uniform. This is the suit he wore for his first ever battle. It's a pretty good blend between the ultimate suit from earlier and the more realistic World War II uniform. I don't think there's really too much to say about it, but I think this suit truly represents the moment Steve became Captain America. Now moving on to Daredevil. These suits not only have contrasting looks, but contrasting stories as well. I won't focus too much on the story of the suits, more so just the suits themselves and how they're designed. The yellow suit is the first Daredevil suit, and it definitely felt that Silver Age aesthetic. I like how the suit managed to be an homage to his late father by including his boxing colors such as red and yellow. I do love the suit very much, but I get why a lot of people didn't. It kind of looked goofy even for the time, which is why it only lasted about 7 issues at the time it was made. The Man Without Fear suit is what most casual Daredevil fans are drawn to. This had Matt wear a black sweatsuit with a black mask and some white sneakers. This suit has a more realistic and practical look to it, and it makes sense for it to be black for stealth aspects of it. Realistic suits fit more for the street tier heroes. The Netflix suit was a slight improvement as it included a tight black shirt with some red highlights, hinting Daredevil in the future. When it comes to narrative significance, I would argue that the black suit and the yellow suit are pretty even, but in terms of both practicality and appearance, I'm gonna give it to the black suit. Now, let's move on to some DC heroes. In some versions of Batman's origin story, Brute starts off with some tactical gear and a ski mask. We've seen this in Batman, Mask of the Phantasm, and Batman Begins. Arkham Origins has more of a ninja-like vibe with it in the vigilante suit, but in Batman's Zero Year, he mostly wears disguises. Those are just suits he wears before he becomes Batman, and I want to focus on the ones he wears as he's starting out as Batman. In BTS, he wears something not too different from his normal suit, with a different bat symbol and utility belt. In Arkham Origins, his suit is more tactical, which is fitting given how Bruce is still new to everything and needs a new suit to deal with his reckless nature. Despite those two, my favorite suit is the Zero Year suit. The reasons I like it so much are 1. It is an homage to the first appearance suit. 2. It combines Arkham Origins and BTS by being basic but a little bit militaristic. And 3. It's overall just a well-designed suit for an early year Batman. Although in terms of pre-Batman, I love the Vigilante suit from Arkham Origins. Superman has a few suits throughout different media that we can talk about here as well. First is the homemade suit in Superman and Lois. This suit is a one-to-one of the Fleischer suit and looks like something Martha Kent would make for Clark. I've always thought that if Superman was going to wear trunks, it'd be for a more homemade suit. And if he wasn't, he'd wear the Kryptonian suit, which is what this show does, and I really enjoy that. It doesn't always look great the other way around, in my opinion, like with the new Superman movie that's coming out. Number 2 is the Smallville suit. How could we talk about Superman prototypes without bringing up how he didn't have the classic suit for 10 seasons in this show? For most of the series, he'd always just wear his farm clothes. He did have a red jacket and blue shirt combo that he would wear most often, but that one changed in season 9 with the blur suit. There are two versions. The first one being the black one, which I thought was nice, but didn't really scream Superman. It was used around the time where superhero suits were a bit inspired by the Matrix. I'll give points to the trench coat as it flows the way a cape does. The second one was introduced later on as an upgrade. This time he was wearing the Superman colors, a red leather jacket and a blue shirt, similar to what he normally wears in the show. Out of these three from Smallville, I'm giving points to the very first one, since I don't think the leather jacket feels too Superman-y. And the black suit, well, it just doesn't fit for Superman, that's all. Next up is the Man of Tomorrow suit, and I'm not the biggest fan of this one. The World War II pilot headgear makes sense, but it just doesn't look that great. The leather jacket is just plain as well. I really don't like this suit, which is why I'm glad it was only temporary. But it really doesn't just transition into the classic uniform. That's very opposite of the New 52 jean suit. Finally, we reach the New 52 origin suit. This is a really good origin suit. It consisted of a simple t-shirt, jeans, and a cape. I love the contrast it has from the Kryptonian armor, as it evokes the everyman. Looking at this suit will have anyone think that Superman is just like us, and for the most part he is, alien powers aside. This suit feels like what Smallville should have given him for the later seasons. I love this suit, but one little nitpick I have is the symbol. I just think it'd be interesting if the symbol was at least a bit different from his normal suit. The true suit he briefly wore is what I'm referring to, but that doesn't look as good compared to what I'm talking about now. Out of all these prototypes, I'm giving it to the New 52 Action Comic suit. It just looks like a really nice transition to his classic suit, and it even leads to the New 52 armor instead. Son Goku, the grandfather of Shonen, has had many different pieces of attire throughout his lifespan, but we need to talk about the very first. The blue gi is what he wore for the very first few chapters of Dragon Ball. This is what he wore before being acknowledged as a Turtle School student, and it contrasts with that uniform a bit. The white belt also represents the beginning of his journey. Naruto Uzumaki. While the suit itself is not a prototype, the goggles are. The goggles sort of represent Naruto's readiness and search for adventure. I also think he just liked having something to cover his head before he got the headband. It was very common for young boy characters at the time, as it represents youth and naivety. For Ichigo Kurosaki, the substitute Soul Reaper look isn't too different from his normal Shikai look, besides the big brown belt around him. The blade itself shares similarities in design to Rukia, which makes sense as he is using a bit of her powers, and Ishin, which we weren't aware of at the time. I also like how massive it is, kind of hinting at how much power Ichigo would really show later on. But yeah, those are some examples of some prototype suits that I've seen throughout other media. Do you have any recommendations? Which ones would you like to see in another video? If interested, just like and subscribe, and I'll make sure to get down to it. Till then, have a good one.